So, hi, good morning. So, I think for the first time, your class is happening at this venue. This entire week, it would be here. So, last class we just started with. We have not gone into Swadesi and Backward. So, second phase of the freedom struggle, and that is passive resistance. Just give me 1 minute. So now, last class we started with the second phase of the freedom struggle, and then moreover, what we have discussed till now is basically some the personality of the Tilak, and then also the announcement of the Curzon. So when it comes to announcement of the Curzon, he was known for his reactionary leadership and very extreme measures. So when it comes to this partition of Bengal, what we have written, July announcement was made and in October it was implemented. But in reality, this news was already there from, from what time? From 1903 itself. He made it very clear in 1903 itself that there would be a possibility of the partition of Bengal. Obviously, this is a grapevine then, and this is not a formal announcement. But then, as you know, that if some reforms or some decision are to be taken, so थोड़े बहुत information society में drop कर दिए जाते हैं, so that people must not feel the change as a all of sudden. Even at that point of time, Surendranath Banerjee and many other people were campaigning against it, that it will never happen. Okay? And finally, it was on 19th of July, he made the announcement. The reason that he has quoted, obviously, if you get a question that his sharp reactionary policies of the divide and rule, so you need to add few more things then. So I'm just giving you ideas that what you'll be writing in this one. And moreover, what he said that Bengal has become too big to administer. Then it is almost that when you combine the population of the Bangladesh and the Bengal, it is almost 78 million, 7.8 crore. Then, and that point of time, 7.8 crore was too much. Then, 8 crore marlo, and total population of India was 24 crore. Then, so it is 1/4 of the population of India. So they cited the reason that it has become difficult to manage the Bengal with such a sizable population, and it has to be divided. And then they further cried that Assam's development is not happening because there is a hell lot of Bengali population. Okay? So Bengalis are more assertive about their rights. So when Assam would be separated, so Assam's development will happen. This was also one thing they said. But this is to be said at the very first place. This was not the intention. The intention of the division was something else. Then, and what was the intention of the division? They actually wanted to reduce the Bengali speaking people into a minority. Then, so Bengali speaking people into a minority, 17 million people after creation of the Bengal, West Bengal. So 17 million people in West Bengal would be Bengali speaking, and then there would be good enough number of the people who will be Udiya speaking and who would be Mathili speaking. Okay? Mathili and Bhojpuri speaking in Bihar. So this was the idea that there would be 3 linguistic divisions in the Bengal itself. Then, and these 3 linguistic divisions will not let them get united. Then, so that was also one idea. So this you will have to, while you're writing the answers, you will have to incorporate these all points. Then, क्योंकि सिर्फ इतना लिखोगे कि he wanted to divide the Bengal on the communal basis, you can extend little bit. 4-5 line add कर सकते हो. Beyond that, you cannot add. So now understand. So announcement was made 19th of July and it was implemented on 16th of October. And then after, the movement in India started. Then, so we have already mentioned that what kind of movement. So moderates wanted to protest it, but they don't wanted to go too far in the protest and the movement. Then, but on the other hand, extremists wanted that last 20 years they have already seen the moderate methods of prayers and petitions and these all, and they have not worked well, then that they have not achieved much. So they were like that now we need the new strategies, and new strategies are passive resistance. In fact, if we look at the statement of the Aurobindo Ghosh, so Ghosh said that this passive resistance would be like that non-cooperating with the British at all the levels, so that their functioning would be crippled. Right? Their functioning will be crippled. They will not be able to take any administrative decision. That Indians would not be cooperating with them at any level. Then it included, so when it comes to the program that they have suggested, it included the boycott of the national councils, boycott of the that British goods and services, British schools, educational institutes, and any other institution which is associated with the British. So then there was a pressure from both the sides. And what is the heading that we have written? INC session of the Banaras. Okay? So annual session, this is the first annual session that we are going to write. So Gopal Krishna Gokhale was the president of this session. And now looking at the immediate environment which was there at this point of time, Gopal Krishna Gokhale allowed the beginning of the Swadeshi and boycott movement. Then, so he allowed beginning of the Swadeshi and boycott movement. Moreover, this Swadeshi and boycott were interlinked, and they were based on the development of the Atma Shakti. Then, so they were based on the development of the Atma Shakti. First of all, let's define that what is Atma Shakti, and then we'll come to the Swadeshi and boycott. Then, so what is Atma Shakti? Anyone who would like to define? It's very simple. Hindi. Yes? Introspection. Okay? So, but kind of, it will be part of it, but dekho, Atma Shakti means that if you say that I would focus on Atma Shakti, meaning that you will be developing your own powers, you'll be focusing on your own inner self. Then, so what is the inner self of India? India's culture, India's power, India's strength, India's identity, okay? India's way of living, okay? Indian way of livelihood. Then, so these would be there. Then that they will be focusing on the Indianness. Basically, Atma Shakti is not just related to the aspects of the different aspects of the life associated with the consumption, but it is also associated with a cultural rejuvenation. Then, so cultural rejuvenation. So Indian culture would be the prime focus of it. And then, moreover, just understand what is Swadeshi and boycott. So when you're boycotting the British goods and services also, so obviously goods are required on daily basis. Then that British are the one who are manufacturing the salt many places, then British are the one who are manufacturing the cloths, and then many other manufactured goods are there. So you need the goods then. So for that, you will have to rely on the Swadeshi. So boycott and Swadeshi are interlinked. When you are boycotting something, so you will have to make something. Then, so make something. So they are promoting the Indian made things, not buying the British stuff, but made what we say today, make in India, made in India. Then, so the same sort of concept was not there, it was there and it came here. Then, so they emphasized on make in India or made in India, Indian made goods, and then once Indian made goods are there, they can boycott the British goods. And so this was the idea, and it all started. But then we'll have to look at what were the major developments at the time of the Swadeshi and boycott. So what were the major developments? In culture field, there was major development, but then there were other things also. For example, that boycott of the educational institute was also very successful, and large number of the students, they boycotted the educational institutes, and moreover, many educational institutes also came up by this point of time. So for example, Rabindranath Tagore has already created in the early years of the 20th century, in between 1900 to 1903, he has created Shanti Niketan. Then, now it was an inspiration, the Vishwa Bharati University of the Shanti Niketan inspiration. Then Aurobindo Ghosh also created a school. Then many other people, they also created many schools. Then, and these were nationalistic schools in which the focus was that education would be imparted in which language? Vernacular language. So local languages. Then, so this is what is happening. Then moreover, some of the Indian industries are also going to come up. Then we will write about it, that which all Indian industries are there, and people are, Indian enterprises are that getting some sort of impetus. And then major development was in the field of the culture. So one by one we will see that what were those major development in the field of the culture. ठीक है? So एक बार पहले इस session के बारे में लिखो, mention. So annual INC session 1905. Already I think you have written the title last day, है ना? तो लिखो, it was presided by Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and session was in Banaras. So it was presided by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Then in this session, Gopal Krishna Gokhale sanctioned the beginning of Swadesi and boycott movement. Swadesi and boycott movement. Full stop. Moderate leaders did not wanted, इसी में लिखो, moderate leaders did not wanted to take the boycott provision too far. And as such, boycott of Liverpool salt and Manchester cloth. Liverpool salt and Manchester cloth was approved. So basically this is the industries based in these areas. So Liverpool in UK, okay, where salt is manufactured, and Manchester happens to be the first industrial city in the world which is known for the textile industry. In fact, those who have biological sciences, they must have read many experiments which has happened in the Manchester that related to the industrialization, mutation. How many of you have biological sciences? Not in exam, but you have studied. So you must have read about that experiments of the mutation which were there in the city, and particularly ones which were related with the moths. No idea, okay? So the color of this moth, you know? No, some of you might be knowing that Hindi में बोले तो टिड्डा, ठीक है? So different varieties of the tiddas which were there, which emerged in the Manchester city, and it was all because the impact. So the pollution studies are also there from 1700s actually, that these flying moths which actually infest many of the crops. And बहुत बार दिल्ली में भी ऐसा होता है that many a times they talk about it, that कि टिड्डों का झुंड आने वाला है, and then close your doors and everything. So there were a hell lot of mutation in their genetics then, that they were light color and they altogether became black just because of the pollution which was there in the Manchester. The reason is that Manchester was actually supplying the textile to all the British colonies. Then the talk that we did in the previous class, that is manufactured goods from the Britain, it was actually all Manchester based. So this is what they are saying, that we will boycott the Liverpool salt and Manchester cloth. Then, so the important thing was to begin the Swadesi and boycott movement. Though moderate leaders have proposed this, extremists did not wanted it to be only limited to two things, but then they said that at least beginning must be made. And then these extremist leaders, they were thinking that एक बार start हो जाने दो, next time when the presidential elections will be happening, so then we will propose our own candidate as a president, and if he is elected, so we will go through our own methods. So they were waiting for the next session to happen, okay? And the next session, ठीक है, एक बार उसको भी सुन लो, and then we will talk about the developments in the Swadesi and boycott movement. Then, so the next session happened in Calcutta, ठीक है, 1906, and it brought Das down to the hopes of the moderate extremist leaders. Why so? Because moderates were the old leaders of the Congress. They were in good numbers. Okay? When we talk about the early nationalists, it included both extremist and moderate, but then moderates were in great numbers, and actually they were the creators of the Congress. Then, so what they did, that in 1906, when the session was to be held in Calcutta, they proposed the name of Dadabhai Nauroji. Why so? Because he was the oldest man and oldest man in the Congress, equally respected by both the factions. So it was seen that if the name of the Dadabhai Nauroji is proposed, so extremist leaders will not contest him, and exactly happened in this way. So extremist leaders, once again, they decided that they will not oppose such a respectable man, and they will not contest against him. So once again in 1906, they were not able to achieve what they wanted. Then, so write little bit what you have written. What is the last thing? So just give me 1 minute. So moderate leaders did not wanted to take the boycott provision too far. This is TOO, too far, and as such, boycott of Liverpool salt, Liverpool salt and Manchester cloth was approved. Then mention the major developments. The major developments were mainly related, the major developments were mainly related to the field of culture, mainly related to the field of culture, Moreover, Swadeshi and boycott were interlinked. Swadeshi and boycott were interlinked and based on development of Atma Shakti, based on the development of Atma Shakti or self-reliance. Self-reliance. Then mention, you write, further you write definition of the Atma Shakti. Atma Shakti meant developing inner strength within India, relying on Indian goods, and promotion celebration of Indian culture. Promotion celebration of Indian culture. Promotion celebration of Indian culture. Done. So now after it, so write a title: Developments during Swadeshi and boycott. Developments during Swadeshi and boycott. So listen, as we mentioned that developments were in the field of the culture. So let's look at the field of the culture, and rest of the places we also will talk about that. So whatever we discussed earlier, we'll be writing. So very first thing, that at the time of the partition of the Bengal, Rabindranath Tagore was highly offended, and then he wrote a song. Okay? And what was the name of the song? Amar Sonar Bangla. Then, so Amar Sonar Bangla, it was written in Bengali, and this is the song which inspired the nationalists at that point of time. And moreover, after India's independence, when two Pakistan are getting created, East Pakistan, West Pakistan, and in 1971, when the East Pakistan has gone into its liberation and it became Bangladesh, so they adopted this song of the Rabindranath Tagore, Amar Sonar Bangla, as their national anthem. So it's right now it is national anthem of the Bangladesh. Then the next one after it, take care. So this was one development, but then there were many writers who were writing the songs. For example, there was one more song which became very popular at this point of time, Dakshina Ranjan Mitra's song, Thakur Mar Jhuli. Then this was also very popular song in this duration. Then There was song which was written earlier, okay? That was by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and the song was Vande Mataram. Then, so Vande Mataram emerged as a national song at this point of time, though it is composed little earlier, but then it became popular at this point of time. Then apart from it, there are other developments also. So for example, Abanindra Nath Tagore, from the Tagore family itself. Then, so Abanindra Nath Tagore broke the European tradition of the painting. That earlier the painters were imitating the Victorian style painting, the Western style painting. But now he started to paint on the Indian themes, based on the Indian life and Indian theme. And here I want to discuss one very important painting. So this painting hasn't been mentioned in any of the modern book, but it's actually there in the one of the art and culture book. Okay? So, and not art and culture book, NCRT. So the last year, there was one new NCRT of art and culture was released, and that was Introduction to the Fine Art Part 2, which was totally related to the painting section. In that, they have defined the importance of the painting which was created by Abanindranath Tagore. Listen carefully, okay? And this is how UPSC is asking the questions. Then, so he painted the image of Bharat Mata. Okay? And he painted the image of Bharat Mata, which invoked the feelings of Indians all over India, and what was depicted in the painting of the Bharat Mata. So understand, in the painting of the Bharat Mata, she was depicted with the four hands, then, and in these four hands, he is holding four things. Then, so in one of the hands, he is holding a piece of cloth. In one of the hands, he is holding paddy, bunch of paddy, you know paddy, chawal. Okay, so not in it's in its original form. So rice in its original form with the bunch. Then, so she is holding paddy. Then in one hand she is holding a book, and in one hand she is holding a Rudraksha mala. Then, so Rudraksh, all of us know. So Rudraksha mala. Now, so what does it indicated? Understand, the cloth indicated the basic necessity of the people. It is a basic necessity. Then a bunch of paddy indicated basic necessity of the people, food. Then book indicated secular education, and Rudrakshmala indicated spiritual education. Okay? Religion nahi, spiritual education. So this is what was indicative. Now, why these all four things were given? This indicated that these are the needs of the people, not the division of the state. So this image highlighted that these are the needs of the people, not the division of the state on the basis of the religion. People need food, people need cloth, people need education, and people need spiritual development, then not the division of the country. And that became a very popular thing at this point of time. Then moreover, many other developments were there. So for example, we were talking about the schools, so we'll write over here that Aurobindo created a school, but then one more thing happened, that they also created an institute of technology in Bengal. And in fact, since that this technological education was to be imparted through many Western people, so since there was a lack of the Western support at this time, so it was decided that they will be collecting funds, and some of the bright students, they will be sent to Japan for studying the technology. Okay? So that's how many students from Bengal, different parts of the country, they were sent to Japan on a scholarship to study the technology. Then apart from it, schools were created, and moreover, Oriental Society of Art was created. Then, so this Oriental Society of Art was also created with the support of the Japan. Then, and this Oriental Society of Art, it also started to give scholarship to the students who are bright, to the people, to the painters who are the bright. And then the agenda of the Oriental Society of Art is to promote Indian art, Oriental art. And what is Oriental art? Oriental art means Eastern art, and Occidental already we have mentioned. This can be ये दोनों जो words जो हमने use किया था पिछली class में, Oriental and Occidental. Occidental can be used for the Western world, and Oriental is used for the Eastern world. So China comes in which category? Oriental. ठीक है? Japan Oriental, South Korea Oriental, then Singapore, Malaysia, ठीक है? Oriental, Thailand Oriental, India Oriental. ठीक है? So what is there after Iran is Oriental, and on the other side of the Iran is Occidental. Okay? So these were the cultural developments. Then we'll move to some other areas in Maharashtra also. What were the developments? We'll discuss later. So pehla likho, very first one. Okay? Number wise. On partition of Bengal, Rabindranath Tagore, on partition of Bengal, Rabindranath Tagore composed composed a very emotional song, a very emotional song, Amar Sonar Bangla. Bangla, which later, which later became, which later became national anthem, which later became national anthem of Bangladesh, national anthem of Bangladesh after its liberation, after its liberation. Done. Number two, mention. So see the spelling which I'm writing. Dakshina Ranjan Mitra. Dakshina Ranjan Mitra composed Thakur Mar Jhuli. Thakur Mar Jhuli. Which also made emotional appeal, which also made emotional appeal among Bengalis. Emotional appeal among Bengalis. Then, don't you feel that class is little suffocated? Is it? I'm feeling suffocated. तुम्हें नहीं लग रहा है? No, you will feel little less because you are there on your seat and they are just writing. I have to speak. थोड़ा सा temperature down कर, ठीक है? The थोड़ा सा means that 4-5 degrees. So now, next one you write after it, what I have mentioned. So गाने वाला दो हो गया. Then next you write Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's song. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's song Vande Mataram. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's song Vande Mataram emerged as national song. Emerged as national song. National song during Swadesi movement. During Swadesi movement. So next we write. Next. Abanindra Nath Tagore. Abanindra Nath Tagore broke the European tradition and European tradition of painting in Victorian style. Victorian style. European tradition of painting in Victorian style, and he started to paint on Indian themes. Indian themes and the themes which can arouse nationalistic feeling, which can arouse nationalistic feeling. Then mention further nationalistic feeling, full stop, after it. For example, he painted he painted the image of Bharat Mata. For example, he painted the image of Bharat Mata. Then Bharat Mata. You want to write what was depiction or already you have written? लिख लेना चाहिए था. It is up. देखो, if I keep on dictating everything ना तो फिर classes would be dragged. ठीक है? So there are some discussion. ये तो तुमको अपने end पे I have already told you that I will not dictate everything, but things would be there in the class. So लिख लिया करो. चलो I'm dictating this part, but then make it a habit that there are few things अपने end पे थोड़ा सा decide करके लिख लो. ठीक है? And I think in the very first class I said to you that keep a space on the other side so that these things which I am mentioning you can write on the sides just in a point format. ऐसा नहीं कि पूरी story लिख लो, but just in a point format. That for example, you could have written all the four hands of Bharat Mata and the four things, and then when going back at home you could have elaborated it. ठीक है? So लिखो that Bharat Mata was depicted with four hands. Bharat Mata was depicted with four hands holding four different objects. Holding four different objects. Four different objects. Then you mention cloth depicted basic necessity. Cloth, piece of cloth depicted. Piece of cloth depicted basic necessity. Basic necessity. Number 2, bunch of paddy depicted. Bunch of paddy depicted scarcity of the food which is basic need. Scarcity of the food which is basic need. Book depicted secular education. Book depicted secular education. And Rudraksh beads. I'll write Rudraksh beads depicted. Rudraksh beads depicted spiritual education. Spiritual education. So do you have any idea that what is the importance of the Rudraksh in Indian spiritualism? घर पे तो सुना ही होगा. All of you must have heard little bit. At least someone must be in your family using the Rudraksh. What is the effect it creates on the body? That's what I'm asking. Heat or calmness? It creates calmness. ठीक है? It creates calmness and it is associated with the which god? Lord Shiva. ठीक है? So mythology wise it is associated with the Lord Shiva. There are many varieties of the Rudraksh. The most rare is the Ekmukhi Rudraksh and the most common is the Chaturmukhi Rudraksh. ठीक है? But then rare ones also include not just Ekmukhi, Panchmukhi and then 12-mukhi. ठीक है? But then is there any scientific basis in the usage of the Rudraksh that it will create calmness in the body? Then there happened to be a very interesting debate with some of the faculties, and this is the good thing that we can have a scientific debate. So they will be contesting and then we'll be providing the people who are based in the culture, knee deep in the culture. Onus is on me to find out the scientific aspect of these all practices. So in some of the classes of the culture, I'll be delving into the use of the gems and these all, but here I just need to tell you that it is scientific. Okay? How it is scientific? Because if you look at the Rudraksh tree, you haven't seen, then if you haven't seen, it majorly happens on Himalayas then, but then there are other states also where the hilly ranges are there and it is also grown over there. So it grows on a very high altitude. Then first of all, high altitude. And second thing, it has one of the tallest height. It is even taller than the palm trees and the coconut trees. Then, so the growth of, if the coconut trees, suppose the growth of the coconut tree in 10 years, you consider 1. So growth of the Rudraksh tree would be 1.5. Okay? So their ages are same, but the growth would be 1.5. Then, since it lives on the top of all the foliage, so there is a one thing that it receives, that electromagnetic radiation. Okay? So all the electromagnetic radiations are stored. It receives the electromagnetic radiations which are related to that inducing the calmness in the body. And how it induces the calmness in the body? When you're wearing it, so that electromagnetic radiation is there around your body. Either you're hanging in your neck, or you're keeping in your hand, or you are putting it as an armband, whatever way you are using it. So it creates some electromagnetic environment over there, which you know what happens. So which induces in your body production of a certain types of the enzymes and the hormones which are related to inducing the calmness in your body. So there is a scientific relation of all these things, and many a times there are people who project themselves as that they are too based in the science, that they call these things as the bullshit. Then, but in fact, even NASA says that where the science ends, religion starts. This is what they say. And one interesting thing I'll tell you, you must have noted down that in G20 and the Bharat Mandapam, what was installed in the front of the Bharat Mandapam? Nataraj. Okay? Do you know that where else it has been installed? In some big institutions of the world, in the front gate of the NASA also. Then, so in the front gate of the NASA also, and so as in the CERN laboratory, CERN laboratory. Have you heard about it? On the borders of the Switzerland and France. Gland is the name of the place, and moreover, what they are doing, they are just trying to prove that Big Bang was a reality. Then, so all the experiments related to the Big Bang is happening in the CERN laboratory. Why this image? This image is the symbol of the cycle of the creation and the destruction and the recreation. So Nataraj symbolizes the cycle of the creation, recreation and destruction. Now, if you look at the universal concepts, अभी नहीं स्टार्ट किया है, but in geography I hope this much, and I think from very first class, from very class 2nd or class 3, we start reading about the solar system and the universe. What we read? Stars, and how stars are created. So stars, nebulas, stars, blue star, new star. Okay? One getting created, one getting destroyed. One getting destroyed paves the way to the other. This is what is the cycle of the universe. Then Lord Shiva also symbolizes this symbol. It's not about the religion, but what it symbolizes. It symbolizes the cycle of the creation, recreation, and the death. And this is what happens to the human body also. That once you are dead, you get mixed with the 5 elements of the earth. But then finally, with these 5 elements, one more new thing is created. Not necessarily the human being. It might be a plant also. It might be an insect also. So this is the symbol, and this is why it was not a surprise to anybody when it's there on the front of the Bharat Mandapam. Okay? So let's get back to this part. So what we were talking about, that these 4 symbols and the 4 meanings of it. Apart from it, there were many other things which happened at this point of time. So, for example, Acharya P.C. Ray in Bengal. Let's talk about Bengal first, and then we'll move to the other areas. So, Acharya P.C. Ray in Bengal, he created one pharmaceutical organization named as Bengal Chemical Factory. So Bengal Chemical Factory has many such important distinctions. It is still one of the profit-making surviving pharmaceutical industry of India, and it happened to be the first pharmaceutical industry of India which started producing hydroxychloroquine. What is hydroxychloroquine? Have you heard about this drug? No? Yes? Where? Malaria के लिए. Very good, exactly. Malaria के लिए यही एक drug है. और कहाँ use हो रहा था? COVID के initial phase में. Then, so initial phase में it was getting used in the COVID. Then, so and malaria drug was found in India, and it is made from one tree, bark of one tree that is known as cinchona. Then, so cinchona. So this is the first company in India which started producing this drug. Then apart from it, one more thing I'll tell you. It may catch attention of many of you. One of the very big problem with particularly the females is the UTI, urinary tract infection. And in this, there is one solution which is often given to them, Alkazol. I hope some of you must have heard. Then Alkazol. It is made by Bengal Chemical Factory. So it's still a very, not a profit-oriented, but the service-oriented industry, and still it is surviving, even after more than 100 years. So this is one thing. Then, now let's go to the other parts of India. So in other parts of India, V.O. Chidambaram Pillai from Madras, then he founded one company, and name of the company was Bharat Steam Navigation Company. Okay? So Bharat Steam Navigation Company, and moreover, apart from it, then what we mentioned about the schools and the colleges. Then so that will do. But then in Maharashtra also we need to talk about. In Maharashtra, there was one person whose name was Sakharam Ganesh Devskar. Sakharam Ganesh Devskar in 1904 itself he wrote a book, and name of the book was Deser Katha. This question was asked in 2020 prelims paper. So Deser Katha. In Deser Katha, he has he has not only promoted the idea of Swadesi and Swaraj of Swadeshi and Swaraj of Dadabhai Naroji and Mahadev Govind Ranade, but in this he warned the people, okay, against what? So the warning was, exact wordings are, he warned the Indian people against British hypnotic conquest of the mind. So British hypnotic conquest of the mind, I will explain it with the detail. एक बार लिख लो, ठीक है? So mention. What is the last one? ये अवनींद्रनाथ टैगोर लिखा है, ठीक है? तो अवनींद्रनाथ टैगोर के बाद लिखो ओरिएंटल सोसाइटी ऑफ आर्ट. Oriental Society of Art was founded. Oriental Society of Art was founded to promote the Oriental art based in Oriental tradition. Based in Oriental tradition. Full stop. Then mention. It also started to offer scholarship to the bright painters. Then mention. Nandalal Bose was the first recipient. Nandalal Bose was the first recipient of this scholarship. Then mention. And ये लिखवाऊंगा नहीं, बस सुन लो, ठीक है? So who was Nandalal Bose? Nandalal Bose, later on he happened to be the most famous painter of the Indian National Congress. And moreover, whenever any national movement was starting, so it was Nandalal Bose who was painting the mandaps of the Congress, ठीक है? And mandap, and not only whenever, one of the part of the national movement that suppose, जैसे अभी तुम यहाँ से निकलो, IAPL house है, and you move towards the Jhandewala Mandir. Then you will see these walls of the Jhandewala Mandir. They all are painted with the nationalist leaders. Then, so many such nationalist leaders, their pictures are created. It was also the tradition. This tradition is continuing from the Gandhian movement time. So whenever any Gandhian movement was starting, so the entire route was painted with the Indian tradition. Okay? So Nandalal Bose was painting these entire road, and moreover, Nandalal Bose is attributed with one of the most famous painting which aroused the feelings of the people of India. And what was that painting? The civil disobedience movement and Gandhi's painting of march towards the Dandi. Okay? His salt march. He is holding the stick, inclining forward, and he is wearing a dhoti, and there is a kind of a gamcha, okay? A soft cotton towel on his body. So that single image of the Gandhi, which I think it has caught imagination of the entire world. Not I thought this is what is there. Okay? So it caught imagination of the entire world. In fact, that is the time when Albert Einstein has written about the Gandhi that it is very hard to believe that such a man in the flesh and bone existed on this planet Earth. Then, so this is what Albert Einstein wrote about the Gandhi, that such a man of the value existed in the flesh and bone. And that was the image even that Albert Einstein also posted at many places. Then, so this image was painted by the Nandalal Bose. And later on, after India's independence, that topic becomes the topic of the painting in art and culture. He founded the Bengal School of Painting. Then, and one of the focus of the Bengal School of Painting, use of only two colors. Then, at a time. Then, and majorly he was using two colors. These two colors were black and white. So, to Indians, there were only two things. Nothing existed in the gray, everything was in black and white. The two Indias, the Indias of the rich and the India of the poor. India of the rich belongs to the British, and India of the poor belongs to the that Indians. Then, so this is what many people in nowadays they have used, that there are two Indias. Then that actually was the speech in 1930s, that there are two Indias. And in reality, I hope you're getting that whom I'm referring to from the modern time. There is a one actor and who very beautifully said this thing in some international symposium outside India. Then this was actually the statement of Dadabhai Nauroji. In reality, I'm telling you. And that statement was also made in London, that there are two Indians, the India of the poverty stricken and India of the rich. The India of the poverty stricken, second, the India of the slums and the India of the that big houses. So exact statement was actually recreated and it was given as a new speech. So many a times we as the Indians, we don't know, but then many a times we know that what is the importance of the history. It has many lessons for the people. So for example, that rebranding of the history creates many benefits to the people. So for example, today's time we talk about the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Isn't not a rebranding of the Atma Shakti? Okay? Made in India, is it not the rebranding of the Swadeshi? So in a good way, in a positive way, we are saying, so this is how history helps a lot to people in deciding their strategies. So now, what you have written, I hope Nandalal Bose part is over. Then you write that the India-based education was emphasized. India-based education was emphasized. Was emphasized. Emphasized. Full stop. Inspired by Rabindranath Tagore, inspired by Rabindranath Tagore's Vishwabharati University Santi Niketan. That's the name of his university. Santi Niketan is the place. Okay? So Vishwabharati University Santi Niketan, comma, Aurobindo Ghosh created a school. Aurobindo Ghosh created a school to impart education in vernacular medium. To impart education in vernacular medium. To impart education in vernacular medium. Vernacular is regional language. Okay? Then you write, funds were collected. Funds were collected with which funds were collected with which the bright students were sent to Japan. Bright students were sent to Japan for technology education. For the technology education. Technology education. Okay? Then, next point you write, Acharya P.C. Ray. Acharya P.C. Ray founded Bengal Chemical Factory. Bengal Chemical Factory. Done? And then you write Acharya P.C. Ray के बाद लिखो V.O. Chidambaram Pillai. V.O. Chidambaram Pillai founded Bharat Swadeshi Steam Navigation Company. Bharat Swadeshi Steam Navigation Company. Steam Navigation Company. ठीक है? So Maharashtra wala part likho and then I'll explain it after writing. Okay? So mention in Maharashtra, Sakharam Ganesh Deuskar. Sakharam Ganesh Deuskar wrote Deser Katha. wrote Deser Katha in 1904. In 1904. After the partition of Bengal, it became very popular. After the partition of Bengal, it became very popular. In this text, he promoted Dadabhai Naroji's and Mahadev Govind Ranede's. In this text, he promoted Dadabhai Naroji's and Mahadev Govind Ranede's idea of Swaraj and Swadesi. Idea of Swaraj and Swadesi. He also warned against Chetavani wala warned, WARNED, warned against. So see what I'm writing. British colonial hypnotic conquest of mind. British colonial hypnotic conquest of mind. So now understand. What does it mean? मैं एक बार चाहूँगा कि तुम अपने end से एक बार सोच के define करो. That try to define this. Think about it. British colonial hypnotic conquest of mind. Think about it. Anyone who dares to speak? Yes? Very good, exactly. Creation of illusion in the minds of Indian of what? The next question. Of British supremacy. Could be self-interest issues in the mind. Could be. Yes? Good. Good. Okay. That they are the saviors of Indians. Then impacting or implanting Western education. These all are correct. Whatever you three said, these all would be the part of it. But let me define it. Then, so basically, that by this point of time, okay, 1904, we have already seen that India has been colonized. What kind of colonization has happened? Economic colonization, political colonization, and social colonization. This has already happened. ध्यान से समझना, ठीक है? That by this point of time, by the end of the 19th century, the economic, political, and social colonization of India has happened. What is left? The colonization of the mind of the Indians. Okay? So the colonization of the mind of the Indians, as you said, that make Indians believe that British are their saviors. Make Indians believe that their best interest is served by the British. Make Indians believe that they are inferior. Then make Indians believed that British crown is all for their benevolence. Then, and this way, okay, they will be resorting to the vehicle. And what is the vehicle? To win the mind of the people, to implant their thoughts in the mind of the people. Education. Okay? And moreover, dividing the Indians on petty issues, parochial issues. Then, so petty issues and the parochial issues. And what is that? Dividing the Indians on the line of the religion. Then, let's see that you Indians are fighting with each other. We are segregating you so that separately you will live in peace. Then, so this is what they have done at this point of time. In fact, one of the part which was elaborated in this book before 1905 was basically that one of the idea of this hypnotic conquest of mind to divide the society of the India on the communal lines. It seemed to be a prophecy, which turned out to be correct, which turned out to be 100% true in 1905. Then, so that's why it became very popular. Then that it became popular and people started to take it in hand. Then within a short span of time, thousands and thousands copy of this particular text was sold. Now British authority were there, they were on the toe, because they cannot ban it immediately. They needed some sort of legislation. So later on, when we are going to talk about the development of the press in India after the India's independence part, so there will mention about those two acts: Newspaper Incitement to Offence Act and Indian Press Regulation Act. As per this act, this text was, or this book was, banned by the British authority. Okay? So I hope you understood this part. So these were the major developments at this point of time. Okay? So major developments at this point of time. Now is the time that we need to mention about two things. One is the limitation of the Swadeshi and boycott movement, and third is the, in the limitation part itself, foundation of the All India Muslim League. So now understand. So this Swadeshi and boycott movement, as we mentioned, that it was going good then, and these were the developments at this point of time. But then what happened? That there were few limitations of this movement. First of all, the very first limitation, that though the movement was initiated, but they were not able to tap the support of, the nationalist leaders were not able to tap the support of Muslim masses, particularly in Bengal. They are tapping the support of the Muslim masses in different parts of the country, but not in Bengal. And which area was impacted? Bengal was the most impacted. Then, now, why they were not able to do that? So, first of all, the divide and rule policy, which was followed by the British, they have already implanted that Hindus and Muslims cannot live together, and their best interest would be served when they are living segregated. So this is one thing. And then there was, because of this, there were many reactionary leaders in the Muslim masses of the Bengal, who were actually fed by the British authority, and actually they were agents of the British authority. So they were also fostering the British idea of the divide and rule. And these leaders were Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka and Aga Khan of the Muslim League. Then, so now what happened? In 1906, it is the British Viceroy in India. He is the one who facilitated the creation of the All India Muslim League. Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka and Aga Khan were the initial founders, and it was supported by then Viceroy Minto. Then, so what was the declaration of the Muslim League? Muslim League said that they are going to create a political platform to promote the interest of the Muslim community. Then, this is the very first thing they said, that they are going to create a political platform to promote the interest of the Muslim community. Then they added that their intention is not to create a communal disharmony in the Indian society, but only to promote the Muslim interest. Then further they added that while doing these all, they will remain completely loyal to the British authority, and they will be within the four walls of the law. So this is what they said. Now, at this point of time, comparisons are brought between the foundation of the Congress, and parallels are drawn between the foundation of the Congress and Muslim League. People also say that Congress was also facilitated by a British. But then you have a look at it, that when Congress was facilitated by a British, he was not the high authority. He was a retired British civil servant then, and he was not the only person responsible for it. Then, moreover, there were reasons that why they have facilitated. Then, on the other hand, it is the person who is in the office and who is the most important British officer in India, he is facilitating, Viceroy is facilitating the creation. Moreover, Congress never declared that it would be loyal to the British authority. It always said that they will be highlighting the grievances of the Indian people. And they never said that right from the beginning, Congress represented the entire Indian lot, which included Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, everyone. But Muslim League is maintaining that they are only for the Muslim interest. Now, here one discussion I'm doing, but will not be writing at this part. I will dictate that part in the communalism after the independence part. Now understand. There are 3 stages of the communalism. ठीक है? बहुत simple है समझना. 3 stages of communalism. I hope you understand communalism. ठीक है? So 3 stages of communalism, and the very first stage is the statement of the Muslim League. Now understand. So Bipin Chandra happens to be one of the historian, and his book is considered to be the original book. ये बात समझना. Bipin Chandra's book is original book. What is the spectrum? It's a guide book. Okay? What is TMH? It is a guidebook. Then what is other publication book? It is a guidebook. So guidebook is basically a collection of the things from the different places. Then, but then questions are always asked on the basis of the original books. Okay, so original books, and it has been the case in the UPSC that majority of the questions till this date, after India's independence, till this date, has been asked from the big book of the Bipin Chandra, Struggle for Independence, in the mains examination. Okay, so nowadays that people are running after this particular book, Spectrum. I don't say that it is bad. They have also improved from the many other versions, but they have made it very bulky. So there are many things which are still not there in that particular book which you are referring, and including this one, the stages of the communalism. So the very first stage of the communalism, okay, I'll take some example. Okay, I'm taking you as an example. Then, so the very first stage of the communalism is called as the liberal communalism. Liberal communalism starts with that I identify with you, that we are saying that I and you belonging to the same religion. So since you and me belonging to the same religion, our secular interests are very similar. What is secular interest? Political, economic, and social. So our political and economic interests are very similar, and let's promote our secular interest. So this is the liberal communalism. बहुत लोग हैं, but I'm identifying with you that you and me, ठीक है, we are belonging to the same religion. Let's promote interest of our religion. So we are not saying that we will kill the others' interest. We are saying that कि हम बस अपना promote करेंगे. मैं तुम भाई भाई चलो promote करते हैं, ठीक है? This is the first stage of the communalism, which is called as the liberal communalism. Then comes the liberal moderate communalism. Okay? So moderate communalism, you can say, second stage. Moderate communalism is the one in which I say that I and you belong to the different religion. I belong to different religion, you belong to different religion. It means that our secular interests are also dissimilar and divergent. So your secular interest, what is secular interest? Political, economic, social interests are different. My secular, economic, and political interests are different. We will go in different direction. Then this is the second stage of communalism. And the third stage of the communalism is since I and you are dissimilar, belong to the different religion and the communities. So not only, ध्यान से समझना, third stage is the extreme communalism. Not only our secular interests are dissimilar and divergent, but they have become antagonistic to each other. The word is antagonistic, okay, or antithetical. What does it mean? That if you promote your secular interest, so my secular interest would be hampered. So you will have to be removed. Okay? So you will have to be removed. तुम्हारा कत्ल कर दिया जाए, तुम्हें मार दिया जाए. Okay? So this is what is the extreme communalism. And extreme communalism promotes the violence of the deed, violence of the behavior, violence of the speech. In fact, people often suffer through the diarrhea of the mouth. ठीक है? I hope you understand what is diarrhea of the mouth. कंट्रोल ही नहीं होता है, क्या बोल रहे हैं, किसको क्या बोल रहे हैं, किसको मारने के लिए बोल दिया, किसको काटने के लिए बोल दिया. So this is what happens, and everything happens in the staged manner. So foundation of the Muslim League itself was the very first stage communalism, liberal communalism, that they just want to promote interest of one community that itself was feeded by the British in their minds, and then later on from extreme the moderate Muslim League developed, and from moderate the very hardliner Muslim League developed. And then the reactions would be there from the Indian society, that Hindu society also. So then in Hindu society also there would be the organization will be coming up, and they will be feeding the liberal communalism, then moderate communalism, and then extreme communalism. So this is how it happens. Moreover, I'm giving you examples. ये लिखने के मैं लिखवा दूंगा. There is no doubt about it. I'm not kind of forcing you to write at this point of time. So understand that later on, when we need the examples of it, so obviously we need to quote the examples from the modern Indian history itself. So, but liberal communalism का modern time में अगर एक example बताऊं. So for example, that there are many people who are promoting the interest of a particular community. So for example, you must have said, and अपने कास्ट से relate करके मत लेना. It is just an example. ठीक है? So अग्रवाल महासभा, क्षत्रिय महासंघ, ठीक है? Brahmad Uday Sangh, okay? You're getting it. So just a particular community. So it is not, communalism is not just related to religion, but within a religion, पहले तो religion के basis पे होता है, उसके बाद then it comes on the basis of the particular caste and communities, then whereby one particular caste is promoted, one community is promoted. So this is what happens. And then after, the violence happens. So for example, in election scenario, have you seen that in election scenario, even the caste societies are fighting with each other? Then that इस जात के आदमी को वोट देना है, ठीक है? This is what happens. That we will not vote for the lower caste people, we will not vote for the upper caste people. This is what happens. So this is also the example of the communalism, not just the religion. So the very first basis of the communalism starts with the religion and ends at the caste and class. ठीक है? Class भी होगा, rich class people and poor class people. So for example, that if you happen to visit in different parts of Delhi, you will see that there are many societies in Delhi where poor people or that people from the lower class are not allowed. This is called as the ghettoization of the rich people. Okay? Gated societies. So in gated societies, what is the criteria? 250 gaj ka plot hai, ठीक है? Or 300 gaj plot. And that plot, obviously, it will be owned by the rich people. So poor cannot buy over there, they will not be living over there. Then, and this gated community have a rule that kaun entry karega, kaun entry nahi karega, street vendors will not enter. I hope you have seen in Delhi, okay? And in many cities of India. So this is also one such feature which is the feature of the different type of the communalism in the society. Okay? So we'll write this part after the end of the independence part. Okay? I hope you understood. So the statement of the Muslim League, though it seems that they are saying that their intention is not to create disharmony in the society, but to promote the Muslim interest. So Venkshit, you're right. Limitations of Swadeshi and boycott movement. Limitations of Swadeshi and boycott movement. Then you write after this, mention karo. Number 1, the nationalist leaders were not able to garner the support of Muslim community, particularly in Bengal. Then number 2, the divide and rule policy of British authority, further fed the minds of people from different communities, that their secular development is not possible together. Not possible together. Full stop. Number 3, reactionary leadership among Muslim masses, particularly in Bengal. Full stop. But in the same statement you write, these leaders supported the divisionary policies of British authority. Then number 4 you write, पहले लिख लो, Muslim League का foundation will write in the last. Then so you write that nationalist leaders were not able to tap to tap the full potential of masses, to tap the full potential of masses due to their own differences, due to their own differences, due to their own differences. Next, moderate and extremist leaders of the Congress, moderate and extremist leaders of the Congress often collided on the ways and the methods of Swadeshi and boycott movement. Ways and methods of Swadeshi and boycott movements. Boycott movements. Then, and then now write a title. Okay? So mention Foundation of Muslim League. Okay? So Foundation of All India Muslim League. All India Muslim League. Now, so Foundation of All India Muslim League, mention in 1906, Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka, Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka and Aga Khan were facilitated by then Viceroy Minto, in creation of AIML, that is All India Muslim League. Viceroy Minto in the creation of All India Muslim League. Full stop. Muslim League declared that their intention is to create a political platform. Their intention is to create a political platform to promote the interest of Muslim masses. To promote the interest of Muslim masses. Then mention interest of Muslim masses. They don't want to create any communal disharmony in the society. Any communal disharmony in the society. Then mention they further pledged their loyalty towards British rule and maintained that they will always work within the four walls of the law. So this is the statement of the Muslim League. Take it. So now this part is done. But then after this part we need to see the session of the Congress, which I mentioned little bit. ठीक है, फिर से वापस से उसको elaborately we need to mention. The 1906 session of the annual session of the Congress, which is held at the Calcutta, and moderate leaders were smart enough that they proposed the name of the Dadabhai Naoroji so that extremist leaders will not contest his name. So as such, Dadabhai Naoroji became the unopposed president of the Congress in 1906. Now, Dadabhai Naoroji also tried that he must conciliate between the two groups, the extremist group and the moderate group. So he proposed some compromise resolutions. Then, so first of all, he proposed compromise resolution. He said that he demanded Swaraj. And what was his Swaraj at this point of time? That he demanded that self-rule. Okay? That his Swaraj meant that self-rule must be given to India just like the one which is given in the other British colonies. And which British colonies he referred? Canada and Australia. Then, so he said that just like the self-rule which has been given in the Canada and Australia, same way self-rule must be given to the India. And that is, he is calling as a Swaraj. Then he also proposed boycott. But then in the boycott, he's not particularly mentioning which type of the boycott. Is it the full-out boycott of every British goods and services, or limited boycott? Then he did not define it. Then national education. Okay? So national education, annulment of the partition of the Bengal, and promotion of Swadesi. So these were the 5 compromise resolutions he proposed. He tried. He thought that it will bring some sort of harmony between the moderate and the extremist leaders. But then, after the session is over, both the leaders, they started to give their own versions of the Swaraj and the boycott. So what happened? Major difference was there on the boycott. Extremist leader, they started to say that this is the boycott of all the things which are British, all the goods which are British and all the British services. On the other hand, moderates were maintaining that no, we must limit it to only 2 things, that is the Liverpool salt and Manchester cloth. But then, once again, this time they were all up in the arms. Then after, they all were deciding, or basically they all were in the expectation that if the next session happens, so then we will get our president and accordingly we will get our way. So finally the session was to be held, and here comes the interesting case. Now understand, moderate leaders, since they were, once again I'm maintaining that since they were the initial leaders of the Congress, so they had the complete control on the Congress machinery. And in fact, they were able to decide the venue of the session. So originally venue of the session was Nagpur. Then it was Nagpur in 1907. And Nagpur was not the native area of the Tilak. Okay? Tilak belonged to Ratnagiri, and Ratnagiri was the part of the Bombay Presidency. Nagpur at that point of time was the part of the central province. Then, जो आज मध्य प्रदेश है. So it was the part of the central province. Moreover, Tilak was very popular in Nagpur. Okay? So he was very popular in Nagpur, and if the election or if the annual session would have happened from the Nagpur, so this was very much possible that Tilak must have become the president of the Congress. But then moderate leaders secretly, they changed the venue, and they changed the venue to Surat. Okay? Surat is in Bombay Presidency. Tilak is native of the Bombay Presidency. He cannot contest the election. You remember the rule? So he cannot contest the election. And now the elections will happen in Surat session. And in this election, moderate leader, anybody who knows the name? Ras Bihari Ghosh. Okay? So Ras Bihari Ghosh became the president. Ab ek baat aur sunna. Last year paper, in 2022 paper, there was a question which was related to Ras Bihari Bose. Easy question. Okay? We'll be reading in the Gadar movement. So there are 2 Ras Bihari. One is Ras Bihari Bose and one is Ras Bihari Ghosh. Okay? Confusion नहीं होना चाहिए. Ras Bihari Ghosh was the president of the Congress in 1907 and Bose was the revolutionary. ठीक है? So याद कैसे करोगे? I'll tell you the way of remembering it. ठीक है? It's funny, but then you will remember it. So when it comes to the name Bose or title Bose, you always remember Subhash Chandra Bose. Okay? He was a revolutionary. So Bose revolutionary. Okay? And Ras Bihari Ghosh. Okay? So how you will remember him? One of the most extreme thing related to Congress which happened in the 1907 session of the Surat was the Congress split or Surat split. Congress got divided, which was unfortunate. So it all happened because of a ghost. Then Ras Bihari Ghost. Okay? So this way you can remember this thing. Okay? And last time it was an easy question in the prelims paper that who was the leader who organized Gadar movement in India, and that was Ras Bihari Bose. Okay? So now you mention annual session of Congress, annual session of INC, annual session of INC 1906 Calcutta. Calcutta. So mention moderate leaders proposed name of moderate leaders proposed name of Dadabhai Nauroji. Dadabhai Nauroji for the Congress president post. For the Congress president post. Full stop. Since Dadabhai Nauroji was equally respected by extremist leaders. So basically they have not written from announced part. एक बार फिर से पढ़ रहा हूँ online, those who have not written they must write. So we started with the moderate leaders proposed the name of Dadabhai Nauroji for the Congress president post. ठीक है? Since Dadabhai Nauroji was equally respected by extremist leader, they did not announced candidature from their side. So this is what I mentioned. Candidature spelling I'm writing. So they did not announced candidature from their side. Then second statement which I mentioned, Dadabhai Nauroji tried to conciliate between two groups, and he gave 5 compromise resolution. So he gave 5 compromise resolutions. So let's write these 5 compromise resolution. Number 1 you write Swaraj, and in front of it you write Dadabhai Nauroji demanded self-rule similar to the self-rule in India, similar to the self-rule given in other British colonies like Canada and Australia. So this is what is there. Then number 2 you write Swadeshi. Number 3 boycott. Number 4 national education. And number 5 annulment of the partition of Bengal. Then so this is what he gave. Now you write after changing paragraph, mention both British and both moderate and extremist leaders, started to give their own explanations, started to give their own explanation of boycott, their own explanation of boycott. Full stop. Extremists wanted to extend boycott provision to all the British goods, and services, then mention to all the British goods and services, full stop. On the other hand, moderate favored moderates favored limited use of boycott to Liverpool salt and Manchester cloth. Full stop. Both the groups started to plan that in the next annual session, if they are successful in electing their own president, then they will go ahead with their version of boycott. Then, so now you write, mention. Next one. So annual INC session, once again, 1907, and place is Surat. And one subtitle you can write in the brackets, Surat split. So as we discussed, that originally it was planned in Nagpur, but moderate leaders, they shifted it to Surat. Tilak cannot contest the election in Surat, and as such, the other leader, okay, from the moderates, Ras Bihari Ghosh, he became the president. But there were many funny things which happened at this point of time. So, for example, that Bombay was the original place where the Congress was founded. So, right from the beginning, there were a good number of the Congress members from the Congress from the Bombay. And when it comes to the Congress delegates, so if it is happening in the Bombay, so obviously more number of the Congress members can participate in the Surat. Then, and if it is happening from the Nagpur, so Nagpur was the hub of the extremist leader, so more members of the Congress were there in the Nagpur. Okay? So that was the expectation that if Nagpur में होता है तो ज़्यादा लोग participate करेंगे from extremist side and they will be voting in the favor of Tilak. And Surat side, so more moderates will be participating and they will be siding with the moderate leaders. So when the venue got changed, so Aurobindo Ghosh decided that he will not let, okay, he will not let the extremist, moderate leaders get their way. He booked an entire train of 900 people from Bengal to vote for the moderate, extremist leader. But then when this news has reached to the leaders of the moderate faction, they called 3,000 people from Bombay. Take. So now both the sides, good enough number. Now Aurobindo got to know that they will not be successful. And finally, Ras Bihari Ghosh became the president. But then it is just a very opposite thing. We are calling some leaders as the moderate, their behavior is more extreme. And those who are extreme, their behavior is little moderate. Then, So now when the session started, so as you know that in any parliamentary session, ठीक है, or in any such party session, people, they give their own opinion, they give their own speech. So it was Tilak who stood from his seat and then he started reading from a page. He was giving his speech. So Rasbihari Ghosh, ठीक है, he stopped him. ठीक है, he stopped him from giving the speech. But then Tilak continued giving his speech. Then, and after it, not only Rasbihari Ghosh, ठीक है, he tried to stop, but he also incited his members to throw out Tilak from the assembly. Then, and then what happened? So the moderate leaders, ठीक है, or followers, they came charging on the Tilak with a stick. Okay? They came charging on Tilak with a stick, and this was enough, ठीक, for Aurobindo. They all decided that if they are charging on the Tilak, who is the senior most leader, then and they will not sit back. So they also came up, okay? And the fierce fight between the extremist and the moderate started. And as we say this all the time, and that is truth, that is not a fabricated or exaggerated thing. Jute, chappal, kursi, image, everything was thrown on each other, okay? And then one incident happened that also needed to be shared. So in the middle, Rasbihari Ghosh was there. On the sides of the Rasbihari Ghosh, on one side Firoz Shah Mehta, and on the other side Surendranath Banerjee. Okay? They were also the old leaders, you can say, as compared to Rasbihari Ghosh. So now what happened, that the extremist followers, they started to hurl the chappals and the jutas on Rasbihari Ghosh. Okay? So the very first chappal which was thrown on Rasbihari Ghosh, it hit Surendranath Banerjee. Okay? And that Rasbihari Ghosh, he was young, so he was able to mend and bend then. So it hit Surendranath Banerjee, and Surendranath Banerjee did not felt good about it. He was one of the senior leader, and as you know that he was the second civil servant of India. First was the Satyendranath Tagore, and the second person who cleared Surendranath Banerjee. So he did not like that. But then he was mature enough that he took this humiliation with a pinch of salt, that he did not took it seriously, very seriously. But then the second chappal which was thrown, okay, once again Rasbihari Ghosh was like, bend it like Beckham. And then it hit the one of the cheek of the Firoz Shah Mehta very badly. And Firoz Shah Mehta, he took it very seriously. He took it very seriously and he was hurt beyond redemption. And then I'll tell you one story. That later on when Tilak is arrested, he is sent to the Mandale jail, and Surat split has happened. Both the factions of the Congress are not getting any advantage. They will realize that this was a fault. Then, and when Tilak is returning back, in 1914, he is returning back from the Mandale jail, he tried to convince all the moderate leaders that we have done a mistake, let's reconciliate, let's get together. So everyone in the moderate leadership was ready for it, except Firoz Shah Mehta. Firoz Shah Mehta was like that rogue father who is saying that ये शादी तभी होगी जब मेरा last आएगा. Then, so मेरे मौत से होके गुजरेगा. He is making that statement that till his lifetime there would be no such thing like the unison between the moderate and the extremist. And finally, what happened in 1916? Literally everyone was waiting for the death of Firoz Shah Mehta. He died, and on the next day of his death, it was announced that both the factions of the Congress are getting united in Lucknow. So, you know, there are few things which must be taken with a pinch of salt. That अभी मुझे भी लग रही थी, वैसे महसूस करने वाली चीज़ है. So, गर्मी और बेइज्जती महसूस करने पे ज़्यादा लगती है. So, जितना कम महसूस करोगे उतना ज़्यादा better है. So, इन्हें ज़्यादा लगी थी, and that's why he took it for a long time. So now, Surat split happened. After Surat split, as you know, that moderate leaders, they were appeased by, appeased by the British authority. That in fact, moderate leaders were given a bait by the British authority that if you cooperate with the government, so in future we are going to come up with the political reforms and majority of your demands would be conceded. So they have given this assurance to the moderate leaders. And after the Surat split, British authority was just looking out for even a smallest of the opportunity to arrest the extremist leaders and put them into the jail. And after this, they have followed the policy of the carrot and stick. So let's discuss the policy of the carrot and stick. So have you heard about this policy? Carrot and stick. What is carrot and stick? Divide and rule, bhul jao, It's not divide and rule, it's carrot and stick. What is carrot and stick? It's basically, have you seen the Tongas? Tongas which are driven by the ponies, ठीक है, horses तो नहीं बोलेंगे, ठीक है, खच्चर. So टांगा नहीं देखा है, गाना तो सुना होगा ना, हाँ वो शोले वाला गाना है, बसंती वाला. So so now the what is how the tonga functions, or even many a times you will see, if you closely see, that where the horses are popular, okay, and particularly horses are popular in the marriage ceremonies of India. So generally what happens, that there is a cage in front of the horse, okay, लोहे का एक cage होता है, helmet you can say, and from that helmet there is a extension. From that extension, what they will do, that the people who are riding the horses or these all things, so what they'll be doing, that they will be putting a carrot into it, okay, in front of the two eyes of the horse. Then moreover, the horse will be looking at the carrot, okay, and then it will give an impression to the horse that if he moves a step, so then he will get the hold of the carrot. But when he moves a step, carrot also moves a step ahead, okay. So it means that it is always in front of him, but he will never get it. This is what is the policy which was followed for the moderates, that they were given a bait like a carrot, that very soon there would be political reforms in India, and whatever you are demanding, they all will be conceded. But then what was not defined? Very soon. Is this very soon? Is 10 saal, 20 saal, 25 saal, 30 saal? Nothing is defined. And then the, the reforms are there, but then Indians will never have it. So this is carrot. What is a stick? So stick policy, basically, when the horse is trying a lot to get that carrot, at one moment comes when he realizes that ab nahi milega, theek hai? This is just a kind of illusion. He also starts believing that it is also kind of illusion. So when he starts believing that it's illusion, so then what the Tonga man does, he uses his stick on the back of the horse. ठीक है? So जब पिटता है तो फिर आगे बढ़ता है. This is what is the policy of the carrot and stick. So carrot was followed. Carrot was followed for the moderate leaders, and stick was followed for the extremist leaders. Then that they were suppressed. And since they knew that these all are the bait which are given by the British authority, so they were put into the jail with the policy of the stick. Okay? So Tilak's case, I already mentioned. We mentioned that he was falsely charge seated in that particular Prafulla Chaki and Khudiram Bose case, that just he wrote an article and then he was arrested for 6 years, deported for 6 years. Similarly, Bipin Chandra Pal, he was arrested for 1 year, 6 months. Okay? Lala Lajpat Rai was put into the jail for 1 year. V.O. Chidambaram Pillai for 6 months, and Aurobindo Ghosh was also tried in the court. Then, so the trial of the major leaders of the extremist Congress is happening. Then, and majority of them, except Aurobindo Ghosh, rest of them were put into the jail. So we'll talk about the Aurobindo Ghosh in revolutionary nationalism once again. So mention, you write, what is you have written? Inval INC session 1907. लिख लो, उसके बाद break दे देता हूँ, ठीक है? So mention, you write that originally session was planned at Nagpur, which was hub of extremist leaders. But moderates shifted the venue to Surat, so that Tilak must not contest the elections. Full stop. In the session, moderate leader Ras Bihari Ghosh was chosen Congress president. Then mention after it, When the session started, when the session started, Tilak was not allowed to speak. When the session started, Tilak was not allowed to speak. Speak and he was also mistreated. He was also mistreated, which led to which led to beginning of which led to beginning of fight between which led to beginning of fight between extremist and moderate leaders. Fight between extremist and moderate leaders. Unfortunately, it led to split in the Congress. Unfortunately, it led to split in the Congress. Full stop. Moderate leaders captured Congress machinery. Moderate leaders captured Congress machinery and extremists were thrown out of the Congress. And extremists were thrown out of the Congress. Done? Thrown out of the Congress. Done? Then mention. A paragraph change karo. You write. After the Surat split, British authority, after the Surat split, British authority started to follow the policy of carrot and stick. Policy of carrot and stick. Then further you mention what is this carrot and stick policy. As per this policy, appeasement strategy. As per this policy, appeasement. APPEASEMENT. Appeasement strategy was followed for the moderate leaders. Appeasement strategy was followed for moderate leaders and policy of suppression was followed for extremist leaders. Full stop. Extremist leaders were falsely charge seated. And arrested. After their trials, Tilak was deported to Mandale jail. Tilak was deported to Mandale jail for 6 years. Mandale jail for 6 years. Lala Lajpat Rai was imprisoned for 1 year. Bipin Chandra Paul and Chidambaram Pillai. So you can write his short name VOC Pillai. Okay? So Chidambaram Pillai were jailed for 6 months. full stop. Aurobindo was also tried. Aurobindo was by the court, also tried by the court, but he was successfully defended by, Chittaranjan Das. He was successfully defended by Chittaranjan Das, C.R. Das, basically. So this is one episode. Now is the time that we need to talk about the Model Elemental Reforms, Government of India Act 1909. But then the other reforms are pending. Starting from 1858. So after the break, we'll start from 1858, 1861, 1892, and 1909. ठीक है? चलो, take break. Write a title. Queen Victoria's Proclamation. (1858). So now listen, that when it comes to the proclamation of Queen, first of all, what unfolded by this point of time? Suppression of the revolt of the 1857, and moreover, an act was passed in the British Parliament which ended the company's rule in India, and it transferred the powers of ruling in India to the British Crown. Okay? In this regard, Queen Victoria issued a proclamation, and that was read out by then Governor General, I would say, Canning. Okay? So Canning read out at a darbar held at Allahabad on 1st of November. So what it said? Okay? The proclamation of Queen Victoria, it maintained that they would be respecting the rights of the Indian princess, meaning that Indian princely states. So they would be respecting the rights of the Indian princess, and it disclaimed any intention of the conquest in India. So intention of the conquest meaning that from here onward there would be no policy of the annexation. Then it further said that Indian social customs, traditions, faith, usages, rights, they all will be respected. British will follow the policy of justice and benevolence. It further said that Indian would be allowed to enter into the administrative services on the basis of their capacity and ability, and they will not be discriminated on the basis of the caste, creed, race and religion. So this was the proclamation of Queen. And in effect of the proclamation, what has come? Government of India Act 1858. So what are the major provisions of the Government of India Act 1858? So first of all, now Governor General post is continuing, okay, but now he is also designated as the Viceroy of India. So this word was interchangeably used. He is also Viceroy of India. He can also be called as the Governor General of India. And so now was designated as the Viceroy of India. And when the word Viceroy is used, so he's a representative of the British Crown. Okay? So he's a representative of the British Crown. That's one. Then the second thing is that it abolished the Court of Directors and Board of Control. There is no need because the company rule has ended. So then there is no need of the Court of Directors and Board of Control. The third one, okay? A British minister, a British cabinet minister, okay? We have talked about him earlier also. So British cabinet minister, Secretary of State. Now he was also made the responsible for Government of India. So where we have talked about him? Board of Control. He was the president of the Board of Control. So now he is made the responsible for Government of India. And to assist Secretary of State, a 15-member Council of India was created. And this 15-member Council of India, or Imperial, it will become Imperial Legislative Council. It will later on become Central Legislative Council. Okay? So mention, you write. After the revolt, after the suppression of revolt of 1857, after the suppression of revolt of 1857, British Parliament passed an act in August 1858. British Parliament passed an act in August 1858, which put an end which put an end to the company's rule in India, which put an end to the company's rule in India. Then rule in India. Then mention the control of British government in India, the control of British government in India was transferred to British Crown. Was transferred to British Crown. Full stop, change paragraph. In this regard, Queen Victoria issued a proclamation. Queen Victoria issued a proclamation which was read out by Governor General Canning, Canning, which was read out by Governor General Canning at a darbar held at Allahabad, on 1st of November, at a darbar held at Allahabad on 1st of November 1858. Then, after full stop, now you mention the proclamation promised to respect the rights of the Indians, to respect the rights of Indian princes, and disclaimed any intention of extending British conquest in India. So what do you understand by it? Disclaimed any intention of extending British conquest in India. बताओ तो सही. You are writing and I explained, but I did not explain. Then no policy of annexation. Earlier, they have annexed with many princely states with doctrine of lapse, subsidiary alliance system. They have defeated Maratha, Mysore, Bengal. Okay? So this annexation has led to the proliferation of the British rule in India. But from here onwards, no annexation. Okay? So what you have written, extending British rule in India. Then you write, it also promised, full stop के बाद लिखना, it also promised to pay due regard to the ancient customs, usages and rights, RITES, and rights of the people, and British government will follow policy of justice, benevolence and religious toleration. Justice, benevolence and religious toleration. Full stop. It further declared that all will be qualified to enter the administrative services to enter the administrative services on the basis of their education, on the basis of their education and ability, their education and ability, irrespective of race and creed, irrespective of race and creed. Then, so this is what is there in the Queen Victoria's proclamation. And in fact, in last 11 years, I have seen that 2 questions directly asked from the proclamation. So you have written the exact wordings of the proclamation. So that obviously when you have read, so question seems to be easy. But जब पढ़ा नहीं है तो question easy नहीं लगता है, ठीक है? So now, the further extension of this proclamation was Government of India Act 1858. So write a subtitle, Government of India Act 1858. 1858. So once again you write, I know too much of writing is there, but mention, very first one. It now designated Governor General as also Viceroy of India. Governor General as also Viceroy of India. Viceroy of India, full stop. Viceroy position was representative of British Crown. Representative of British Crown. Then, number 2, a minister of the British Cabinet, comma, Secretary of State was now made responsible for Government of India. Was now made responsible for Government of India. Then number 3, a 15-member council was created. A 15-member council was created to assist Governor General in his official function. Then the last one you write. It abolished Court of Directors and Board of Control. It abolished Court of Directors and Board of Control. Then, so this is what is about the Government of India Act 1858. But as we can see, the provisions are not very elaborated one, and they need further elaboration. So when the Council of India is created, how the things will be happening, who would be the members, so this is to be elaborated. So they took a little bit of time, that is 2 years, and once again in 1861 they have come up with the act. Then, so this act is known as Indian Councils Act. So as the name suggests, it is related to the councils. Which council? The 15-member council which is created. So the further elaboration of the councils will happen. So after the revolt of the 1857, it became very clear that British cannot go ahead with the Indian administration without the incorporation of Indians in the lawmaking process. Then, so a necessity was felt that Indians must be incorporated into the administration, and as such, the provisions were reflective of it. So the very first provision of the Indian Councils Act 1861, understand, it started the process, or it began the process of the representative institutions in which Indians would also be the part of the rule making. Okay? What is rule making? Legislative thing. Okay? So they will also be the part of the legislative process. Now, how these Indians are incorporated? So Indians were incorporated as the non-official member of the council. Then, on the other hand, the official member of the council were British. Okay? So Indians are non-official member of the council, and the British are official member of the council. Moreover, when it comes to their numbers, okay, kaun jada? So official members were more in number, they were in majority, and Indians were non-majority in the councils. Okay? So this is the provision number 1. Now you remember that, or basically that you must be remembering that Bombay and Madras presidency in 1773 Act itself, they were made subservient to the Bengal. Okay? And in fact, the Charter Act of the 1833, okay, it has further centralized the Indian administration. All the major legislative powers were in the hand of the Governor General, okay, or basically Governor General of India. So now the need was felt that there must be restoration of the legislative powers. So this act started the process of the decentralization, meaning that started restoring the process of restoring the legislative powers to Bombay and Madras. Then the third one, okay, Governor General Canning. Now he is also designated as the Viceroy. So he initiated portfolio system. What is portfolio system? Anyone? Have you heard about the word portfolio? It is used in many ways then. So for example, that particularly when you are in the film industry, so you send your portfolio to the directors and these all, then so portfolio system here is associated with the departments. Okay? So Canning started to create many different departments of the administration, like Department of Education, Agriculture, Health, and this is what will be leading to later on the ministries of these particular departments. Then the next provision is basically that it also called for establishment of the provincial legislative council. अब center में तो एक council है ही, central legislative council, imperial legislative council, but then they're also calling for creation of the legislative councils in the provinces. Then, so as such, in 3 provinces, legislative council were created. In 1862, council was created in Bengal. Okay? 1866 Northwest Frontier Province and 1897 in Punjab. Okay? So these 3 places provincial councils were created, and moreover one of the last provision is ordinances. Okay? So whenever in exam you are asked about a question that which of the following act is from which of the following act the ordinances provision can be traced, that would be 1861. So Viceroy was given power to issue ordinances. Then, so to issue ordinances on the emergency matters. Okay? So on the emergency matters. And in the constitution, where is the ordinances? What is the article number? 1, 2, 3. Okay? So 1, 2, 3 in the center. Provinces में 2, 1, 3. Very good, exactly. वही numbers को इधर उधर कर दिया है. ठीक है? So it is very easy to remember that 1, 2, 3 in the center and 2, 1, 3 in the provinces or states अब तो बोलेंगे. So mention, you're right. Indian Councils Act 1861. Indian Councils Act 1861. So you're right. After the revolt of 1857, after the revolt of 1857, British authority felt the need of associating Indians in the process of administration. Associating Indians in the process of administration. Then provision number 1, you're right. It led to the beginning of representative it led to the beginning of representative institutions where Indians were incorporated where Indians were incorporated in the law making process. Indians were incorporated in the law making process as non-official members. As non-official members. Then, next point. British were official member. British were official member, and they held the majority. They held the majority in Legislative Council. They held majority in Legislative Council. Next point. It started the process of restoring legislative powers of Bombay and Madras Presidency. Legislative powers of Bombay and Madras Presidency. Then number 4 mentioned. Viceroy Canning started portfolio system. Viceroy Canning started portfolio system whereby different departments were created. Different departments were created to be headed by specific officers. Then next point you write. It led to the establishment of legislative councils in provinces. Full stop. In Bengal, उसी में लिखो. In Bengal, it was created in 1862. In Northwest Frontier Province, NWFP. ठीक है? 1866 1866 and in Punjab in 1897. Then last point you write. It empowered Viceroy to issue ordinances without the concurrence of concurrence of his legislative council. Without the concurrence of his legislative council during an emergency. Done. So now two more are remaining. One is the 1892 and then 1909. Okay, so that would be the last topic for the today's class. अब 1892 एक बार सुन लो, ठीक है? So what was there in the 1892? Well, less provisions were there, but this is related to the councils only. So these acts are often, not often, the first name is always Indian Councils Acts, okay? Which means that they are related to the development in the councils. Then, so 1892 is also Councils Act, and what it said. So by this point of time, अब development ये देखो that 1885 already Congress has been created, and we have already written that what was the initial demand of the Congress to increase the number of the Indians in the councils. Then remember, now you connect it, and they demanded more powers to the Indians in the council. कि ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ member बना दिया, just a kind of a decorative piece, and then they are just kind of discussing, but on that discussion nothing is happening. So they are demanding the power. So looking at these all, there were three provisions over here. Then, number one, this Indian Councils Act of the 1892, it increased the number of the non-official members. Who are non-official? Indians. Okay? But still, even after the number of the non-official members or Indians have increased, the official majority was maintained, meaning British would be in majority. That means they would be more than 50%. Okay? Number two, so Indian members of the council, now they were given little bit of more power. And what was this power? From here onwards, they can discuss the budget. And remember, they were asking for the power related to the finances. Budget is the finance. Then, so Indian members were given the power to discuss budget and further ask questions to the authority. Okay? So further ask questions to the authority. This was there. And the third was that some of these posts of the non-official member, okay, who are going to be the part of the councils, the process of their selection was the nomination. Okay, so the process of their selection was that indirect election method, not nomination, indirect election method. But one thing is to be noted down, that though it seemed like an indirect election method, but nowhere in the act word election was used. Okay? So it seems like an indirect election, but word has not been mentioned in the act. So you write Indian Council Act of 1892. Indian Council Act of 1892. So number one, you write it increased the members of non-official, it increased the non-official members in the council. It increased the number of non-official members in the councils. Non-official members in the councils. But still, official majority was maintained. Official majority was maintained at both central and provincial councils. At both central and provincial councils. Then central and provincial councils. Then mention, right? It increased the functions of legislative councils. It increased the functions of legislative councils, and Indian members were given the power of discussing budget and asking questions to the executive. Then the last one you write, this act made a limited and indirect provision of election, limited and indirect provision of election to fill some of the non-official seats, in the center and provinces. In the center and provinces. In the center and provinces, full stop. However, nowhere in the act, however, nowhere in the act, word election was mentioned. Nowhere in the act, word election was mentioned. Done? So now let's come to the last one. इस पे जहाँ पे भी खत्म होगा I'll leave the class. ठीक है? So write the last one. Indian Councils Act of 1909. Change over here, just few things. 1909. Tell me other name. Morley-Minto Reform. It's also called as Morley-Minto Reforms. And it can also be called as Government of India Act 1909. So GOI Act 1909. So all the names. Okay? So now listen. This is the act, okay, which is coming up with more provisions, and this is the act which has given a little bit of hope to the moderate leaders कि they will be getting more powers. Moreover, what is this word signifying? Who is Minto? We all know. Governor General, Viceroy. Okay? Who is Morley? Secretary of State. So he is also one very important officer in India. So they came up with the reform, the very first part of the reform. Okay? So understand that from here onwards, both in the center and the provinces, okay, indirect election method was followed. पिछले वाले में we cannot say, we are not saying, we are only saying that indirect method of election was there, okay, but word election was not used. So now in this particular act, okay, in 1909, that indirect method of election was followed, whereby okay, electoral college was created, and in this electoral college, many members who were there, they chose their candidates. So what is this electoral college? When you are going to read parliament in your polity classes, so then you talk that you understand about the presidential election, vice presidential election, where the electoral college is created. Then, so here also electoral college is created. But then, who are the members of the electoral college? Parliament में पढ़ोगे, the MPs and the MLAs are the member of the electoral college. But in this one, the rich class of India, the rich traders, the rich merchants, group of teachers, local representatives and industrial representatives, they were the part of the electoral college. So still a very privileged class is going into the vote. Then second thing, the official majority was removed from the provinces. Meaning, इसका मतलब बताओ, official majority was removed from the provinces. More Indians could be there in the provinces, but official majority was retained in the center. Okay? So this is there. Now the third thing is basically that last act we mentioned that Indian members were given the power to discuss the budget, okay, and ask a question. But is it a concrete right? See, it will be a concrete right, or it will be actually a power when discussion of budget is impacting the result, impacting the allocation. So if I say that let's discuss this thing, let's discuss that how the classes will happen and what all subjects will be reading. You have suggested, all the class has suggested that just after the completion of this particular topic, we must take up this topic. You suggested this is discussion, but then next day I came and I said, ye nahi padhaunga. Okay? So is this discussion leading to anything? Nothing. So this is what was happening in the council. The discussion to ho raha tha budget pe. Indians were demanding more power, more finances to a particular section, but nothing was allocated according to it. So discussion would be a power when we have a right to vote. Okay? So now understand. So Indian members in this 1909, they were given the power to vote on the separate budget item. Not all the items, but at least some items. Okay? So separate budget items. So not, and finances were still removed from it. Okay? So health, agriculture, in सब पे हमें vote करने का अधिकार था. So separate budget item vote power was given. Another thing, that in the previous one we talked about, Indian members were allowed to ask questions, okay, or address question to the executive. But address question to the executive means only one question. There could not be counter question. And in the words of the polity, what we call that other questions, take a complementary question, supplementary question, take a. And in parliament, you'll be reading there will be many type of the questions in the parliament, starred questions, unstarred questions, take a supplementary question. So what is a supplementary question? Suppose you asked a question, person replied to you, and then you still have a query from the second from that answer. So you can ask a supplementary question. So this right was also given in this particular act. But one of the most dreaded provision of this one was separate electorate for the Muslim masses. So it declared the separate electorate for the Muslim masses, and I think we have discussed this particular provision in the beginning also, but let's understand why separate electorate is not considered as good. Because understand, if a constituency is declared as the separate electorate, let's take the example Karol Bagh, okay? If this is declared separate electorate, so no matter how many Hindus, how many Christians, how many Sikh, Buddhists are there in this area, the candidate would be the Muslim and the voters would also be the Muslims, okay? So Muslim candidate voting for the, that Muslim voters voting for the Muslim candidate. So suppose that there is a 50% population of the other community over here. Since they are not the vote bank, so Muslim candidate who is the representative of this area, he will not be concerned about their welfare. If they are not the voters, so the roads would not be created in their area. The drains would not be created in their area. Electricity will not go into their area. Then, so this may happen. But once, you understand, once the reservation comes, okay, reservation is a positive concept. So when the reservation of the constituency happening, so in the reservation what will happen, suppose a Muslim candidate, this area, Karol Bagh has been reserved for the Muslims, so then Muslim candidates would be there, but then his voters are also there from the Hindu community, from the Buddhist community, so he will have to go to them, okay? He will have to canvass in that society and he will have to promise them that if you vote me, so I will create the road, I will create the drain. So it is bringing bonhomie between the groups then, and they are not disaffected from each other. So reservation was a positive concept. British did not use the concept of the reservation, but they went ahead with the separate electorate. I hope you're understanding. So this was the major bone of contention, and this is actually the one of the main reason for increasing communalism in India. So mention, you're right. So very first thing, say only titles you have written, na? So you write, it made provision of election. It made provision of election for provincial legislative council. For provincial legislative council. Then members were elected indirectly. Members were elected indirectly by an electoral college, which consisted of landlords, rich traders, local representatives, group of teachers, etc. Then mention. Number 2, official majority was abolished. Official majority was abolished in the provinces, but it was retained in the central legislative council. Then mention. Next point, third point. British authority further introduced the practice of discussing budget items budget items, and Indian members were allowed to vote on separate budget items, comma, ask supplementary question, and introduce resolutions. Ask supplementary question and introduce resolutions. Then next one you write, what is the number? 4. So mention separate electorate was introduced for the Muslim masses. And income qualification among Muslim masses was kept way lower than the other communities. Now you tell me the second part. What does it mean? What is income qualification? I haven't discussed. We have discussed, in a way, electoral college. Look at the electoral college. Who are the people? Rich people. Okay? So rich traders, rich merchants. Okay? So those people whose income are high, they are the one who will be voting. Okay? So for Hindus, for other communities, suppose that if income qualification to vote is 1 lakh rupees, so for Muslim community it was kept 75,000 rupees. Okay? So this is the meaning. Then one last provision of this particular act was that one last important one, obviously, Viceroy Executive Council. Okay? So in Viceroy Executive Council, one Indian member was to be added, and the first Indian member was Satyendra Prasad Sinha. So mention, you write, one Indian member was added into Viceroy Executive Council. When Indian member was added into Viceroy Executive Council, and the first Indian member was Satyendra Prasad Sinha. Then, so this is what is all about. So 1909. So we have finally catched up to the carrot and stick policy and what was promoted for the moderate leaders. But then tomorrow's class will be discussing about this part, that what was the reaction of the moderate leaders to these reforms and how British authority is going to address these questions of the moderate leaders. And then we'll go into the, where is Gandhi? Gandhi in South Africa. Okay? So we'll start Gandhi tomorrow, and we'll also start revolutionary nationalism phase 1. Okay? Chalo, thank you.